The Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime had seen many species walk through its halls over the past 3 centuries. Tall, proud Zentorians with their crystalline skin that sparkled under the artificial suns. Swift Kytherian warriors whose forearms moved like liquid lightning. The massive Thurvok, whose stone-like hide could deflect plasma bolts. But humans? They were still the newcomers, the strange bipedal creatures from a backwater planet called Earth that had somehow convinced the Galactic Council they deserved a place among the stars. Cadet Marcus Chen pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the Academy's eastern corridor. His heart hammering against his ribs, 3 senior cadets loomed over him, their bulk casting shadows that seemed to swallow the dim emergency lighting. The leader, a Zentorian named Vexistar, stood nearly 8 feet tall, his crystalline features reflecting the corridor's lights like a living prism. His 2 companions flanked him, a Kytherian called Slashk, whose forearms twitched with barely contained aggression, and Gormoth, a young Thurvak, whose stone skin looked like it could crush Marcus without effort. So, Vextar's voice resonated with harmonic undertones that made Marcus's teeth ache. The little earthling thinks he belongs here. Vextar's voices now. Relected why, Marcus swallowed hard but kept his chin up. He'd known this day would come. Ever since arriving at the Academy 6 months ago, he'd felt the weight of 1,000 stares, heard the whispers in languages he was still learning to understand. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans had no business among the warrior races of the galaxy. I earned my place here just like everyone else, Marcus said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. Slashk's laugh was like grinding metal. His forearms moved in complex patterns as he spoke in rapid Kytherian. Too fast for Marcus's translation implant to follow completely, but he caught enough words to understand the insult. My friend here, Vextar translated with mock politeness, says that humans are merely clever animals. He wonders if you can even understand what real combat means. The corridor stretched empty in both directions. It was evening shift, when most cadets were either in their quarters studying or in the recreation centers. Marcus had been heading to the library to work on his xenobiology assignments when they'd cornered him. No witnesses, no security monitors in this section, a blind spot that the senior cadets knew well. Your species fascinates us, Gormoth rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. So small, so fragile. Yet you somehow convinced the Council that Earth deserved representation in the Galactic Defense Force. He took a step closer, and Marcus could feel heat radiating from the Thurvak's rocky skin. Perhaps they made an error in judgment. Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward the emergency beacon on his uniform, but Vexistar's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a smile. Go ahead, the Zentorian said. Call for help. Show everyone what human courage really looks like. The words stung because Marcus knew they were partly true. Humans weren't the strongest or fastest or toughest species in the galaxy. They didn't have natural armor like the Thurvok or energy manipulation abilities like the Zentorians. What they had was stubbornness, adaptability, and a refusal to back down even when every logical instinct screamed at them to run. I'm not calling for help, Marcus said, moving his hand away from the beacon. But I'm not backing down either. Vextar's harmonic laugh filled the corridor. Admirable. Foolish, but admirable. His crystalline skin began to glow softly, a sign that he was channeling energy. Among his people, it was considered a warning before combat. Perhaps we should test this human determination. See how much pressure it takes to crack. Slashk's forearms spread wide, creating a cage of limbs that blocked any escape route. Gormoth's massive form shifted forward, his stone feet scraping against the metal floor with sounds like grinding boulders. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of Earth. Of the blue skies and green forests that these aliens had never seen. Of his sister Sarah, who'd cried when he left for the Academy. Of his parents, who'd sacrificed everything to give him this chance. He thought of Admiral Harrison, the first human to graduate from the Academy 20 years ago, who'd told him during orientation that being human meant you fought not because you were certain of victory, but because some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. When he opened his eyes, Marcus saw Vextar's fist already in motion, crystalline knuckles gleaming as they cut through the air toward his face. Time seemed to slow, and Marcus knew that in seconds he'd be on the ground. Probably unconscious. Certainly humiliated. The other cadets would hear about this. The instructors would ask questions he couldn't answer without seeming like he was making excuses. His dreams of proving that humans belonged among the stars would die in this empty corridor. The punch never landed. A hand, small, pale, distinctly human, shot out from nowhere and caught Vextar's massive fist inches from Marcus's nose. The sound of the impact echoed like a thunderclap in the confined space. The Zentorian's expression shifted from confident aggression to shocked disbelief as his punch, which could have shattered stone, stopped completely. "That's interesting," said a calm female voice with a slight accent Marcus couldn't immediately place. "I was wondering when someone would finally make a move." Marcus blinked, trying to process what he was seeing. A girl, another human, stood beside him in the corridor. She couldn't have been more than 5.5 feet tall, with short black hair and dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore the same academy uniform as everyone else, but something about the way she carried herself suggested she was anything but ordinary. Vextar tried to pull his fist back, but the girl's grip held firm. Her slender fingers, which should have been crushed by the Zentorian's strength, didn't even seem strained. "Let go of me," Vextar snarled, his crystalline features flaring brighter as he channeled more energy. "In a moment," the girl replied pleasantly. She turned to look at Marcus, and he was struck by how calm she seemed. "Are you hurt?" No," Marcus managed. "Maya Nakamura," she said, as if they were meeting at a social function rather than in the middle of what had been about to become a beating. "Transfer student from Earth, just arrived this morning." She glanced at the 3 senior cadets, who were staring at her with expressions ranging from confusion to growing anger. "I was looking for the library when I heard voices." Slash hissed something in Catherian and moved forward, all 4 arms reaching for Maya. She released Vextar's fist and stepped sideways, a movement so fluid it looked almost like dancing. The Catherian's grab found nothing but air, and somehow Maya was now standing 3 feet to the left, looking completely unruffled. "Careful," she said mildly. "The floor in this section is a bit uneven." Gormath lumbered forward with the unstoppable momentum of an avalanche. His massive stone fist, easily the size of Maya's head, swept toward her in an arc that would have pulverized a normal human. Maya leaned backward, the punch passing so close to her face that it stirred her hair, then straightened up as if nothing had happened. "You're all very fast," she observed. "On your respective worlds, you probably don't have much trouble with hand-to-hand combat." Vextar's crystalline skin was now blazing with stored energy. "What are you?" he demanded. Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. "I'm human. From Tokyo, originally, though I spent some time in other places before coming here." She looked at Marcus again. "This is your first year?" "Yes," Marcus said, still trying to understand what was happening. "Yours too, apparently." "Actually, it's complicated," Maya said. She stepped aside again as Slash launched another 4-armed attack. This one, a complex pattern that should have been impossible to avoid in the narrow corridor. But Maya seemed to flow around the strikes like water, never quite where the Catherian expected her to be. "Stop playing with us," Gormath roared, charging forward with both massive fists raised. Maya sighed. "I wasn't playing." For the first time, she moved with obvious intent, rather than simply evading. Her hand snapped forward, not in a punch, but with her palm open, striking the charging Thurvak in the center of his stone chest. Gormath stopped as if he'd run into a wall. His feet scraped backward along the metal floor for several yards before he caught his balance, staring down at his chest in disbelief. A spiderweb of cracks spread across his stone skin from the point of impact. "That's not possible," he whispered. "It's not that impressive," Maya said. "Thurvak skin is incredibly strong, but it's also brittle in the right circumstances. Hit the correct resonance frequency, and even stone will crack." Vextar and Slash exchanged glances. Marcus could see them reassessing the situation. Whatever they'd expected when they cornered him, it certainly hadn't involved a small human girl who could stop their attacks without apparent effort. "Who trained you?" Vextar asked, his voice losing some of its harmonic arrogance. "Various people," Maya said vaguely. "I learned from Zentorian energy masters on Keth Prime. Studied movement arts with the Catherians on their moon colonies. Spent time with Thurvac stone shapers in the asteroid belt." She paused. "And some other places that aren't on the standard star charts." Marcus felt his mouth drop open. The places she was mentioning weren't just foreign worlds, they were legendary training grounds that few outsiders ever saw. The Zentorian energy masters were notoriously selective, accepting perhaps one student every few decades. The Catherian movement arts were considered sacred, rarely taught even to other Catherians. "That's impossible," Slashk said in accented standard. "No human has ever been accepted by the energy masters." Maya shrugged. "I had good recommendations." She looked at the 3 senior cadets with what might have been sympathy. "Look, I don't want to fight you. You're clearly skilled, and under normal circumstances, any one of you could probably handle a dozen baseline humans without breaking a sweat. But Marcus here isn't your enemy. He's your classmate. Maybe instead of trying to pound him into the deck plating, you could try treating him like a fellow cadet?" "He's weak," Gormeth said, though his tone was less certain than before. "His species is weak. They don't belong among warriors." "That's interesting," Maya said. "What's your definition of strength, physical power?" Vextar answered immediately. "Combat ability. The capacity to strike down your enemies." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Those are useful traits. But what about the strength to keep going when everything seems hopeless? The ability to find solutions that no one else has thought of? The courage to stand up for what's right even when you're outmatched?" She gestured to Marcus. He was about to take a beating from 3 opponents who outweigh him by a factor of 10, and he didn't call for help or run away. How is that not strength? Slashk's 4 arms moved in agitated patterns. "Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no energy manipulation abilities." "True." Maya agreed. "We're not particularly fast or strong or tough compared to most galactic species. But we have other advantages." Her dark eyes seemed to glitter with hidden amusement. "For instance, we're extremely good at learning from other species. We adapt, we improvise, we refuse to stay down when we're beaten." She took a step forward, and all 3 senior cadets instinctively stepped back. "More importantly," Maya continued, "we're pack hunters. Humans work together in ways that most species don't. When you threaten one of us, you're not just fighting that individual, you're declaring war on all of us." Her voice remained conversational, but something in her tone made the temperature in the corridor seem to drop. "And we are very good at war." The silence stretched for several long moments. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat and the distant hum of the Academy's environmental systems. Finally, Vexistar's crystalline skin began to dim as he let his stored energy dissipate. "This isn't over," he said, but the threat sounded half-hearted. "I hope it is," Maya replied. "Because if it's not, I'll have to explain to the Academy Commandant why 3 senior cadets thought it was appropriate to gang up on a first-year student in an unsupervised corridor. I imagine that conversation would be awkward for everyone involved." Gormoth looked down at the cracks in his stone chest, then at Maya's small, seemingly harmless form. "How?" he asked quietly. Maya's expression softened slightly. 23 years of training. Starting when I was 5 years old, 12 different worlds, 47 different martial arts, and more teachers than I can count. Plus genetics, luck, and a really good memory for resonance frequencies. She paused. Also, humans from Earth have one advantage that most galaxy species don't think about. "What's that?" Marcus asked. Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "We evolved on a death world. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, sometimes even the rocks. Humans who survived long enough to reach the stars are the descendants of the most adaptable, most stubbornly persistent predators our planet ever produced. She looked at the three senior cadets. You're all from civilized worlds with carefully controlled environments. Earth is still wild. It makes a difference. Vextar straightened to his full height, his crystalline features rigid with offended pride. You think your primitive world makes you superior? Not superior, Maya said, just different. You're stronger, faster, and tougher than I am. But I grew up in a place where the tiniest mistake could kill you, where the weather could change from pleasant to lethal in minutes, where every shadow might hide something with teeth. It teaches you to pay attention, to think quickly, to never give up. She gestured to Marcus. He's probably never been in a real fight in his life. But when cornered by three opponents who could kill him without effort, he didn't break. That's Earth-born human stubbornness. It served our species well. Slashk's arms moved in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as nervous patterns. The instructors will hear about this. Probably, Maya agreed, though I suspect they'll be more interested in why three senior cadets were harassing a first year than in how the situation was resolved. She looked at each of them in turn. Unless, of course, this was some kind of unofficial initiation that I misunderstood. The three aliens exchanged glances again. Marcus could see them weighing their options. Report the incident and face questions about their behavior. Or let it slide and hope the humans kept quiet. Perhaps, Vextar said slowly, there was a misunderstanding. Misunderstandings happen, Maya said agreeably. Especially when different species are learning to work together. She extended her hand toward the Zentaurian. Maya, Nakamura, I look forward to training with all of you. Vextar stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment, then carefully shook it. Vextar of the Fourth Crystal House. He glanced at Marcus. Perhaps humans are more complex than I initially calculated. Gormath touched the cracks in his chest again, then nodded to Maya with what might have been respect. I would like to learn more about resonance frequencies. Happy to help, Maya said. The physics are actually pretty straightforward once you understand the mathematical relationships. Slashk's forearms moved in patterns that Marcus's translator tagged as confused but non-hostile. You fought like a Catherian, he said. But different. Stranger. I learned from Master Vithak on Kirinos Station, Maya said. She taught me that movement is like water, it flows around obstacles rather than trying to break through them. Marcus watched in amazement as the three aliens who'd been about to beat him senseless a few minutes earlier began discussing martial arts theory with Maya as if they were old training partners. The change in atmosphere was so complete that it felt like he'd stepped into a different reality. Thank you, he said quietly to Maya during a brief pause in the conversation. She glanced at him and smiled a warmer expression than the razor-sharp grin she'd shown the others. No problem. We humans have to stick together out here. Her voice dropped so only he could hear. Besides, I've been in your situation before. It's not fun. You have? Different academy, different species, same basic stupidity, Maya said. Some things are universal. Unfortunately. She raised her voice to include the others. Speaking of which, weren't we all supposed to be somewhere? I'm pretty sure evening study period started 10 minutes ago. The senior cadets looked at each other, then at the time display on their wrist units. Vextar's crystalline features shifted into what might have been embarrassment. The instructors will notice if we're late, he said. Then we should probably get moving, Maya suggested. Marcus, which direction is the library? This way, Marcus said, pointing down the corridor. As they began walking together, an odd group of a human, three powerful aliens, and one mysterious girl who'd somehow diffused a potentially serious situation, he couldn't help but ask, Maya, what made you transfer here? And how did you get training from all those different masters? Maya was quiet for a moment, her dark eyes focused on something Marcus couldn't see. It's a long story, she said finally. Maybe I'll tell you sometime when we're not likely to be interrupted. As they walked through the academy's corridors, Marcus noticed other cadets stepping aside to let them pass. Word traveled fast in a place like this, and he suspected that within hours, everyone would know about the confrontation and its unexpected resolution. But instead of the whispers and stares he'd grown accustomed to, he sensed something different: curiosity. perhaps even respect. Maya walked beside him with the easy confidence of someone who belonged wherever she happened to be. She chatted casually with Vextar about crystal resonance theory, and with Slashk about multi-limb coordination techniques. She asked Gormoth about the mineral composition of Thurvok's skin, and took notes on her datapad when he explained the molecular structure. She's remarkable, Marcus thought, watching her interact with species that had considered humans inferior just minutes earlier. But there was something else. Something in the way she moved and spoke that suggested depths he hadn't even begun to understand. As they reached the library entrance, Maya turned to the 3 senior cadets. "This was educational," she said. "I hope we can do it again sometime. Under better circumstances, perhaps we could arrange some training sessions," Vextar suggested, his tone completely different from the arrogant authority he'd displayed earlier. "I would be interested in learning more about human adaptability." "That sounds like fun," Maya agreed. "Though fair warning, I tend to be a demanding training partner." Slashk's arms moved in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as amusement. "I think we can handle it." After the 3 aliens left, Marcus and Maya stood alone in the library entrance. The vast space beyond was filled with data terminals and holographic displays. Students from dozens of species working quietly at their assignments. "Thank you again," Marcus said. "I thought I was going to end up in the medical bay." Maya shrugged. "Like I said, we humans have to stick together." She paused. "Besides, they weren't really trying to hurt you. It was more like a dominance display. They wanted to establish the pecking order." "You could tell that?" "Body language," Maya said. Vextar's energy buildup was impressive but not lethal. Slashk's attacks were designed to intimidate rather than injure, and Gormoth was holding back at least 70% of his strength. Her dark eyes met his. "They were testing you, not trying to destroy you." Marcus thought about this. Would it have made a difference if they were serious? Maya's smile was enigmatic. "Let's hope we never have to find out." As they entered the library together, Marcus realized that his life at the academy had just become much more complicated and infinitely more interesting. The girl walking beside him was clearly much more than she appeared to be, and he had the feeling that her arrival was going to change things in ways no one could predict. Behind them, in the corridor they'd just left, the metal wall still bore the faintest impression of cracks, where Maya's seemingly gentle touch had stopped Vextar's punch cold. The next morning brought the first joint combat exercise of the term, and Maya Nakamura stood in the Academy's largest training hall, watching 300 cadets from 17 different species sort themselves into their assigned units. The air hummed with nervous energy and the subtle vibrations of various species' natural abilities. Zentorian crystals resonating softly, Catherian limbs moving in anticipatory patterns, Thurvak skin hardening as adrenaline coursed through stone circulatory systems. Marcus found her near the human section, where roughly 30 Earthborn cadets clustered together with the unconscious defensiveness that minorities developed in hostile environments. Most kept their eyes down, trying not to attract attention from the larger, more physically imposing species surrounding them. "Nervous?" Maya asked as Marcus approached. "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "Combat exercises at the Academy aren't exactly known for being gentle on humans." Maya nodded, her dark eyes scanning the training hall with professional interest. "What's the format?" "Mixed species teams," Marcus explained. 10 cadets per unit, drawn randomly from all years and all species. Objective-based scenarios with full contact allowed, but no permanent damage. He paused. "In theory. And in practice?" "In practice, humans usually end up as support personnel, while the heavy hitters do the real fighting. When we do get into combat, we tend to get knocked around pretty badly." Marcus watched a group of senior Thurvak cadets demonstrating grappling techniques that involved literally throwing each other across the room. "Some species are just built for this kind of thing." Maya's expression remained thoughtful. "What about strategy, tactics, coordination? Those matter too. But raw physical capability tends to win most of the exercises. Hard to outthink someone who can punch through armor plating." Also, before Maya could respond, the training hall's speakers crackled to life with the commanding voice of Instructor Kalareth, a retired Vorthan general whose 8-tentacle body was covered in scars from a dozen major conflicts. Cadets, today's exercise will test your ability to operate as cohesive units under battlefield conditions. You will be divided into 30 teams of 10 members each. Team assignments are non-negotiable and final. A holographic display materialized in the center of the hall, showing team rosters. Marcus quickly scanned the list, looking for his name. When he found it, his stomach dropped. Team 7, he read aloud. Marcus Chen. Human. Maya Nakamura. Human. He continued reading, his voice getting quieter with each name. Vextar. Zentorian. Kytherian. Gormeth. Thurvak. Maya raised an eyebrow. Interesting coincidence. There are no coincidences at the academy, Marcus said grimly. The instructors know exactly what happened yesterday. This is either a test or punishment. The rest of their team roster included Zarathos, a serpentine Nagan with venomous fangs and optical camouflage. Thyron, a massive Korath, whose species was known for their berserker rages. Pelnara, an ethereal Astrid, whose people could briefly phase out of physical reality. Corvex, a cybernetically enhanced machina, whose mechanical body could interface directly with technology. And Drex, a volatile Pyrian whose internal fusion reactions made him a walking energy weapon. 10 species, Maya observed, including the 5 most physically powerful races in the galaxy. She glanced at Marcus. This should be educational. Instructor Calareth's tentacles writhed as she continued the briefing. Today's scenario is planetary assault. Each team will attempt to capture and hold a fortified position while defending against enemy attacks. The exercise area includes urban terrain, wilderness, and underground tunnel systems. Full sensor networks will monitor all activities. The holographic display shifted to show a 3-dimensional map of the training area, a complex environment roughly the size of a small city, filled with buildings, forests, caves, and artificial obstacles. Victory conditions are simple, Calareth announced. Hold your assigned objective for 1 full hour while preventing enemy teams from capturing their own objectives. Teams that lose their position are eliminated. Teams that fail to work cohesively will find themselves at a severe disadvantage. As Team 7 gathered in their designated staging area, Marcus could feel the tension crackling between his teammates. Vextar stood with his crystalline arms crossed. His expression, unreadable. Slashk's 4 limbs twitched with barely contained energy. Gormoth's stone skin had taken on a darker hue, indicating elevated stress levels. The other team members were equally imposing. Zarathos coiled and uncoiled her serpentine lower body, occasionally flickering in and out of visibility as her camouflage reflexes activated. Thyron's massive frame radiated barely controlled aggression, his thick hide showing the ritual scars that marked him as a proven warrior among his people. Pelnara seemed to exist only partially in their reality, her translucent form occasionally becoming completely transparent. Corvex's mechanical body hummed with electronic activity, while Drex's skin glowed with the internal fires that powered his fusion-based biology. 10 of us, Maya said, looking around the group. Representatives of 10 different evolutionary paths, 10 different ways of approaching combat, 10 different definitions of strength. And 2 humans who don't belong here, Thyron rumbled in a voice like distant thunder. Maya turned to face the massive Korath, her small frame dwarfed by his bulk. What makes you think we don't belong? Look around you. Thyron gestured with one enormous hand. Vextar can channel enough energy to level a building. Slashk moves faster than most species can think. Gormath's skin can deflect military-grade weaponry. Zarathos can become invisible, and her venom can drop a war beast. I can enter a battle rage that multiplies my already considerable strength by a factor of 10. He continued the inventory. Pelnara can phase through solid matter and avoid any physical attack. Corvex can hack into any electronic system, and his mechanical body is virtually indestructible. Drex can generate fusion-level heat and radiation. His massive head turned toward Marcus and Maya. What can humans do? 1. And We can think, Maya said simply. Drex's internal fires flared brighter, his skin taking on an orange glow. Thinking won't stop a plasma bolt. No, Maya agreed. But thinking can help you avoid being in the path of the plasma bolt in the first place. She looked around the group. How many of you have actually read the mission briefing? The question hung in the air for a moment. Several team members exchanged glances. We capture and hold a position, Vextar said with obvious impatience. What more do we need to know? Maya pulled out her datapad and projected a holographic copy of the mission parameters. Capture and hold, yes. But look at the victory conditions more carefully. We have to hold our objective for 1 hour while preventing other teams from achieving their goals. That's not just about raw combat power, it's about strategy, coordination, and resource management. She manipulated the hologram to highlight specific sections of text. The exercise area covers 50 square kilometers with multiple terrain types. 30 teams of 10 members each. That's 300 combatants, spread across an area roughly the size of a small city, all competing for limited objectives. Your point? Slashik asked, his forearms moving in irritated patterns. My point is that this isn't a boxing match, Maya said. It's asymmetric warfare with multiple objectives, complex terrain, and constantly shifting tactical situations. The team that wins won't necessarily be the one with the most firepower, it'll be the one that makes the best decisions and adapts most quickly to changing circumstances. Korvex's mechanical body whirred as his processors analyzed Maya's words. Elaborate. Maya expanded the tactical display. Look at the objective distribution. 30 teams, but only 12 objectives. That means at least 18 teams will be eliminated just from failing to capture anything. The remaining 12 teams then have to hold their positions against concentrated attacks from multiple directions. She highlighted several positions on the map. Some objectives are easier to defend but harder to capture. Others can be taken quickly but are vulnerable to counterattack. Some are isolated, making them difficult for enemies to reach but also cutting off supply lines and reinforcement routes. Marcus watched his teammates' expressions shift as Maya's analysis sank in. These were all experienced fighters, individuals who'd earned their places at the academy through demonstrated combat ability. But most of them were used to straightforward confrontations, where superior physical capabilities decided the outcome. Furthermore, Maya continued, look at the terrain features. Urban areas favor species with technological abilities or stealth capabilities. Forest regions give advantages to those with natural camouflage or enhanced senses. Underground areas restrict movement and visibility, neutralizing some speed advantages while amplifying others. Pelnara's translucent form solidified slightly as she focused on the display. You're suggesting we choose our objective based on terrain advantages? I'm suggesting we choose our objective based on a comprehensive analysis of all factors, Maya corrected. Terrain, enemy capabilities, defensive positions, supply routes, extraction possibilities, and about a dozen other variables. Thyron's scarred features twisted into a frown. This is military academy, not philosophy class. When fighting starts, strength wins. Maybe, Maya said. But let me ask you something. How many wars has your species won? The question hit like a physical blow. Thyron's people, the Koreth, were legendary warriors whose individual combat abilities were unmatched. They were also notorious for losing every major conflict they'd ever participated in, usually because their berserker fighting style made coordination and strategic thinking nearly impossible. That's different, Thyron growled, but his tone was less certain than before. Is it? Maya looked around the group. We've got 10 of the galaxy's premier warrior species represented here. How many of your civilizations have perfect military records? The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough. The Zentaurian Crystal Wars had ended in mutual annihilation. The Kytherian Empire had collapsed due to internal conflicts caused by their inability to coordinate their highly individualistic culture. The Thurvak Confederacy had been defeated by a smaller, more technologically advanced enemy, who'd used superior strategy to neutralize their physical advantages. Humans, Maya said quietly, have been fighting each other for our entire recorded history. We've developed strategy and tactics out of necessity because we couldn't rely on superior physical capabilities. When we finally reached the stars, those lessons came with us. Corvex's mechanical head tilted as he processed this information. You're suggesting that humans have a tactical advantage despite physical limitations? I'm suggesting that different species have different strengths, Maya said. Your mechanical body gives you computational abilities that none of us can match. Pelnara's phasing ability makes her the perfect scout and infiltrator. Thyron's battle rage could break through defenses that would stop an entire platoon. She gestured to Marcus. Humans aren't the strongest or fastest or toughest species here. But we're excellent at seeing patterns, adapting to new situations, and coordinating complex group activities. Those skills become more valuable as situations become more complex. Vex's Tar's crystalline features had been growing brighter as he thought through Maya's words. You have a specific plan. I have the beginning of a plan, Maya corrected. But it only works if everyone contributes their unique capabilities. She looked at each team member in turn. I can analyze terrain and suggest tactics, but I can't phase through walls like Pelnara, or hack enemy systems like Corvex, or generate the kind of firepower that Drex brings to the table. Zarathos's serpentine form rippled as she shifted position. What do you propose? Her voice carried the subtle hiss that made many species instinctively nervous. Maya manipulated the holographic display again, zooming in on a specific section of the map. Objective 7 sits at the intersection of urban and forest terrain, roughly equidistant from 4 other objectives. It's defensible but not isolated. Valuable, but not obvious. Why that one? Marcus asked. Because it's the kind of target that other teams will underestimate, Maya explained. Most will go for either the easiest captures or the most valuable positions. Objective 7 looks moderate in both categories, which means we're less likely to face immediate heavy resistance. She highlighted several tactical features around the position. But look more carefully. It sits on high ground with excellent sight lines in 3 directions. The approach routes can be easily monitored and defended. There are multiple fallback positions if we need to conduct a fighting withdrawal. And most importantly, it's positioned to interfere with enemy movement between the northern and southern sectors of the map. Meaning? Slash gasped. Meaning we can force other teams to either fight through us or take longer routes to reach their objectives. Maya said. We become a strategic choke point that affects the entire tactical situation. Gormath's stone features arranged themselves into what might have been thoughtfulness. You want to make us a target. Gormath's stone feature. You want to make us a target. I want to make us a problem that other teams can't ignore, Maya corrected. There's a difference. A target gets attacked by everyone at once. A strategic problem gets approached cautiously, because rushing in leads to casualties. Drex's internal fires dimmed slightly as he considered this. And how do we avoid being overrun by superior numbers? Maya's smile was sharp. By making sure we're not fighting fair. She manipulated the display to show movement routes and timing sequences. We don't hold the position like a traditional fortification. We use it as a base for mobile operations that disrupt enemy plans and force them to respond to our actions, rather than pursuing their own objectives. Elaborate, Corvex requested, his mechanical voice showing increased interest. Pelnara scouts enemy positions and movements while remaining undetected. Corvex hacks into their communications and sensor networks, feeding us intelligence while disrupting their coordination. Zarathos uses her camouflage to set up ambush positions along key approach routes. Maya continued outlining her tactical concept. Thyron, Drex, and Gormath form our heavy assault element for direct confrontations. Vex's Tar provides long-range energy support and communication jamming. Slash serves as rapid response, moving quickly between crisis points. And the humans? Thyron asked, with something that might have been growing respect. Marcus coordinates information flow and maintains tactical awareness of the overall situation. Maya said, I serve as mobile command element, moving between team members to adjust plans as situations develop. She paused, looking around the group. But none of this works if we approach it like 10 individuals who happen to be standing near each other. We have to function as a genuine team, using each person's strengths to cover for everyone else's weaknesses. The exercise timer showed 15 minutes until deployment. Around them, other teams were engaged in their own planning sessions, most of which seemed to involve a lot of shouting and posturing, as different species tried to establish dominance hierarchies. Your plan has merit, Vextar said slowly, but it requires a level of coordination that most species find difficult. Humans are good at coordination, Marcus said, surprising himself by speaking up. It's one of the things we do well. Maya's right about our evolutionary background. We survived by working together. And if the plan fails, gasped. Maya's expression became serious. Then we probably get eliminated quickly and spend the rest of the exercise watching other teams from the sidelines. She paused. But if it works, we might just prove that there's more than one way to win a fight. Thyron's massive form shifted as he came to a decision. I've spent my entire life relying on strength and rage to solve problems. Perhaps it's time to try something different. He looked at Maya with what might have been the beginning of respect. I'll follow your lead. Small human. One by one, the other team members indicated their agreement. Some seemed more convinced than others, but all recognized that Maya's approach offered something their individual capabilities couldn't provide, a way to be more than the sum of their parts. As the deployment timer reached 0, Team 7 moved toward their insertion point with a sense of unity that had been completely absent 30 minutes earlier. They moved like a coordinated unit rather than a collection of individuals, each member understanding their role in the larger tactical picture. Maya walked beside Marcus as they approached the transport that would carry them to the exercise area. Still terrified? She asked quietly. Marcus considered the question. Yes, he said finally. But it's a different kind of terror. Before, I was afraid of being crushed by forces I couldn't control. Now I'm afraid of letting down teammates who actually believe we can win. Maya nodded approvingly. That's exactly the right kind of fear. As their transport lifted off, carrying them toward a battlefield where 300 of the galaxy's most dangerous young warriors would test their skills against each other, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed in the last day. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he belonged on the same field as aliens who could bench press hover cars and channel energy that could melt steel. It wasn't because he'd suddenly become stronger, or faster, or tougher. It was because he'd found teammates who understood that winning wasn't always about being the biggest predator in the jungle. Sometimes, it was about being the smartest pack. The transport touched down at the edge of a sprawling urban area that looked like it had been designed by someone with a sadistic sense of humor. Buildings rose at impossible angles, connected by bridges and walkways that seemed to defy gravity. Streets twisted back on themselves in patterns that hurt to look at directly. In the distance, Marcus could see the dark mass of forest terrain and the jagged peaks that marked the entrance to the underground tunnel complex. Deployment successful, the transport pilot announced. Exercise begins in 60 seconds. Good hunting, cadets. Team 7 gathered in a tight circle as Maya spread her tactical display across the ground. The holographic map updated in real time, showing the positions of other teams as they deployed across the exercise area. First priority is reaching Objective 7 before anyone else claims it, Maya said, her voice crisp and focused. Pelnera, I need you to scout the direct route. Look for ambush positions and enemy movement. Stay undetected. The ethereal Astrid nodded and began to phase out of reality, her translucent form becoming completely invisible. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Route clear for approximately 2 kilometers. I can see 3 other teams moving toward different objectives. No immediate threats. Corvex, can you tap into the exercise monitoring network without triggering security alerts? The mechanical being's body hummed with increased activity. Affirmative. I have access to environmental sensors and basic communication channels. Security protocols are sophisticated, but not beyond my capabilities. Maya turned to Zarathos. When we reach the objective, I need you to establish concealed overwatch positions. Focus on the 3 main approach routes. Your job is early warning and harassment, not direct confrontation. The serpentine Nagan's form rippled as her camouflage systems tested themselves. Understood. How long do you want me to remain in position? Until the situation changes or I call you back, Maya said. This is going to be a fluid engagement, so everyone needs to be ready to adapt quickly. She looked at the three heavy hitters, Thyron, Drex, and Gormath. You're our shock troops, but I don't want you bunched up together. Thyron takes the north perimeter, Gormath holds the east, Drex covers the south. If we get hit from multiple directions, I want to be able to respond with overwhelming force at each point. What about the western approach? Gormath asked, his stone features showing tactical interest rather than the simple aggression Marcus had expected. That's where Vextar sets up, Maya explained. His energy abilities give him the longest range and most versatility. He can support any of the perimeter positions or engage targets at distance. And Slashk, Thyron rumbled. Mobile reserve, Maya said. His speed lets him respond to crisis points faster than anyone else. When one of our perimeter positions gets overwhelmed, and they will, he'll reinforce until we can reorganize. She turned to Marcus. You're our tactical coordinator. Monitor communications, track enemy movements, and maintain situational awareness for the whole team. I need to know what's happening everywhere, all the time. Marcus nodded, checking his communication equipment and tactical displays. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like his abilities were actually useful, rather than inadequate. What about you? Corvex asked Maya. I'm the wild card, she said simply. I go where the plan breaks down, and try to keep us alive long enough to adapt. The exercise timer reached 0, and the training area came alive with the sounds of movement, as 30 teams of elite cadets began their assault on 12 heavily defended objectives. Team 7 moved through the urban terrain with surprising coordination for a group that had been complete strangers 12 hours earlier. Pelnara's scouting kept them away from enemy positions, while Corvex's electronic surveillance gave them real-time updates on the tactical situation across the entire exercise area. 14 teams have already engaged objectives, Marcus reported as they approached their target. 6 successful captures, 3 ongoing assaults, 5 teams eliminated by superior firepower. Which objectives are still open? Maya asked without breaking stride. 3, 7, 9, and 12, Marcus replied. 7 is ours, if we can reach it in the next 10 minutes. Objective 7 turned out to be a communications tower, surrounded by a complex of buildings that provided excellent defensive positions. As Maya had predicted, the location offered commanding views of the surrounding terrain, while providing multiple fallback positions and escape routes. Perfect, Maya said, as they crested the final hill. Just like the map indicated, but as they approached the objective, Pelnara's voice cut through their communications with urgent warning. Multiple contacts incoming from 3 directions. I count at least 20 hostiles, possibly more. Maya's expression didn't change, but Marcus noticed her hand move to her weapon. How long until they reach us? 5 minutes for the lead elements, 8 minutes for the main force. That's not enough time to establish our defenses, Gormath observed, his stone skin darkening with stress indicators. Then we don't try to defend, Maya said calmly. We attack first. The statement hit Team 7 like a physical blow. Attack? They were outnumbered 2-1 by forces that included some of the most physically powerful species in the galaxy. Every military doctrine Marcus had ever studied said that defensive positions were force multipliers, that you held ground rather than abandoning it for risky offensive operations. Elaborate, Vextar requested, his crystalline features showing confusion. Maya was already moving toward the communications tower, her mind clearly working through tactical calculations at superhuman speed. We're not strong enough to hold this position against determined assault by superior numbers. But we don't have to be strong enough if we can convince them not to assault in the first place. How? Thyron demanded. By demonstrating that attacking us costs more than it's worth, Maya explained. Pelnara, I need detailed intelligence on enemy composition and approach routes. Corvex, can you access the tower's communication systems? Easily, the mechanical being replied, his body interfacing directly with the tower's control panels. Excellent. Patch me into the exercise-wide communication network. Marcus watched in fascination as Maya's plan began to unfold. Within minutes, Corvex had hacked not just their communication tower, but the entire exercise monitoring system. Suddenly, Team 7 had access to real-time intelligence on every other team's position, composition, and objectives. "This is cheating," Slash protested, his forearms moving in agitated patterns. "This is asymmetric warfare," Maya corrected. "The exercise rules don't prohibit electronic warfare or intelligence gathering. They prohibit permanent damage and unsportsmanlike conduct. Everything we're doing falls within the established parameters." She began highlighting targets on the tactical display. "Look at the big picture. Team 12 is moving toward Objective 9. But they don't know that Team 15 is already there and waiting in ambush. Team 8 just captured Objective 3, but they're spread too thin to defend against the counterstrike that Team 22 is organizing." "Your point?" Drex asked, his internal fires burning brighter with anticipation. "My point is that we don't have to fight fair if we fight smart," Maya said. "Pelnara, how close can you get to Team 12's advance element without being detected?" "Close enough to touch them." "Good. I want you to create a distraction that forces them to change course away from Objective 9. Don't engage directly. Just make them think they're walking into an ambush. And then?" Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut vacuum. "Then we let Team 15 and Team 22 eliminate each other, while we consolidate our position and wait for better opportunities." What followed was unlike any military exercise Marcus had ever witnessed or studied. Team 7 didn't fight like traditional warriors seeking glorious victory through superior combat skills. They fought like apex predators, using intelligence and misdirection to turn their enemies' strengths against each other. Pelnara became a ghost in the exercise area, appearing just long enough to panic enemy teams into changing their plans before vanishing back into incorporeality. Corvex maintained their information advantage, while simultaneously disrupting enemy communications and sensor networks. Zarathos established a network of observation posts that gave them eyes on every major movement in their sector. Meanwhile, Maya seemed to be everywhere at once, appearing at crisis points to coordinate responses that turned potential disasters into tactical victories. When Team 19 mounted a direct assault on their position, she led them into a crossfire between Thyron's Berserker Rage and Drex's fusion-powered energy blasts. When Teams 6 and 14 tried to coordinate a pincer movement, she used Vextar's energy channeling abilities to create false sensor readings that sent them attacking empty positions, while Slashik struck at their undefended flanks. "This is incredible," Marcus muttered as he watched the tactical display update. In the 90 minutes since the exercise began, they'd eliminated or severely damaged 8 different enemy teams without losing a single member of their own force. "This is what humans do," Maya replied, pausing in her coordination efforts to check on his status. "We don't win because we're stronger or faster or tougher than our enemies. We win because we're better at seeing patterns and exploiting weaknesses." But even as Team 7 consolidated their control over Objective 7 and began extending their influence across the surrounding terrain, Maya knew that their greatest challenge was still approaching. "Contact report," Pelnara's voice cut through the communications network. "Team 1 is moving toward our position. Full strength, no casualties, and they look angry. Team 1. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he called up their roster. 10 of the most elite cadets in the entire academy, including the legendary Krex Thor, a Zentorian whose crystal formation allowed him to channel energy levels that most of his species couldn't approach. Veltara, a Catherian whose four-armed fighting style had never been defeated in academy competitions. Brutal Gash, a Thurvak whose stone skin was so dense that practice weapons literally bounced off him. "They're not just strong," Marcus warned. "They're smart. Team 1 has won every major exercise for the past 3 years. Maya studied the tactical display, watching Team 1's approach with professional interest. "Then this should be educational for everyone involved. You have a plan?" Thyron asked. The massive Korath had come to rely on Maya's tactical genius over the course of the exercise, but even he seemed daunted by the approaching threat. "I have the beginning of a plan," Maya said. but it's going to require perfect coordination and a level of trust that most species find difficult to achieve. She began outlining her concept, and Marcus felt his respect for her tactical abilities reach new heights. What she was proposing wasn't just audacious, it was borderline insane. It required split-second timing, absolute faith in teammates' abilities, and the kind of coordination that most military units spent years developing. "You want us to abandon our defensive position and attack them in the open?" Gormoth asked, his stone features showing disbelief. "I want us to use their expectations against them," Maya corrected. Team 1 approaches every engagement like a traditional military operation. They analyze defenses, coordinate assault plans, and overwhelm opposition through superior firepower and tactical discipline. "Because that's how warfare works," Vextar pointed out reasonably. "Because that's how warfare worked before humans reached the stars," Maya said. "But we introduced new concepts to galactic military thinking. Concepts like asymmetric tactics, psychological warfare, and the strategic use of unpredictability." She manipulated the tactical display to show movement patterns and timing sequences. "Team 1 expects us to defend our position like rational military theorists. When they discover we've abandoned it, they'll assume we've retreated and pursue according to standard search and destroy protocols." "And when they catch us in the open?" Drex asked. Maya's smile was predatory. "They won't catch us in the open. They'll find us exactly where we want them to find us, in terrain that favors our abilities over theirs, at a time when they're extended and vulnerable." The plan she outlined was complex beyond anything Marcus had imagined possible with their mixed group of species. It required Pelnara to guide Team 1 through a specific route while remaining undetected. Corvex had to maintain communication disruption that prevented them from calling for reinforcements, while simultaneously feeding them false intelligence about Team 7's retreat. Zarathos needed to establish ambush positions that could be activated in precise sequence. The heavy combat elements had to coordinate strikes from multiple directions while avoiding friendly fire incidents. "This is either brilliant or suicidal," Slashk observed, his forearms moving in patterns that Marcus was learning to interpret as nervous excitement. "Sometimes there's not much difference between the two," Maya agreed. "Marcus, what's our time frame?" Marcus consulted his tactical displays. "Team 1 will reach our position in 15 minutes. If we're going to implement your plan, we need to move now. Then let's move." What followed was the most intense hour of combat Marcus had ever experienced. Team 7 abandoned their secure position and melted into the complex urban terrain, using every trick of stealth and misdirection that Maya had taught them to draw their enemies into an elaborate trap. Team 1 followed exactly as Maya had predicted, their superior firepower and tactical discipline leading them step by step into terrain that neutralized their advantages while amplifying Team 7's strengths. When the final confrontation came, it wasn't the epic clash of titans that the Academy's combat simulations usually featured. Instead, it was a masterpiece of coordination that saw 10 different species working together with a unity that most military theorists considered impossible. Pelnara appeared behind Team 1's formation just long enough to panic their rear guard into exposing their flanks. Corvex's electronic warfare created false targets that drew their heavy weapons away from the real threats. Zarathos's ambush positions activated in sequence, each one forcing Team 1 to respond to new threats before they could organize effective countermeasures. Thyron's berserker charge, supported by Drex's fusion blasts and Gormath's unstoppable advance, shattered their formation, just as Vextar's energy manipulation cut their communications and blinded their sensors. Slashk moved through the chaos like liquid lightning, striking at command elements and communication nodes before vanishing back into the urban maze. And through it all, Maya coordinated the assault with the precision of a conductor leading a symphony, her voice calm and steady over the communications network as she adjusted tactics in real time to exploit every weakness and opportunity. When the exercise ended with Team 1's elimination, the training hall fell silent except for the heavy breathing of exhausted combatants and the electronic hum of monitoring equipment. Instructor Calorith's voice cut through the silence with genuine surprise. Exercise concluded. Team 7 achieves total victory with 0 casualties. Team 1 eliminated. All other teams eliminated or failed to achieve objectives. Marcus looked around at his teammates, hardly believing what they had accomplished. 10 individuals from 10 different species, most of whom had been ready to dismiss humans as weaklings 24 hours earlier, had just achieved something that military historians would probably analyze for decades. How? Krexthor demanded, as Team 1 gathered around them in the debriefing area. The legendary Zentorian's crystalline features showed confusion and something that might have been respect. We had superior firepower, better individual combat abilities, and more experience. Maya wiped sweat from her forehead and looked at the assembled cadets with weary satisfaction. You had all of those things, she agreed. But you were thinking like 10 individual warriors who happened to be working together. We were thinking like a single organism with 10 different types of specialized cells. Elaborate, Veltara requested, her forearms moving in patterns that Marcus's translator identified as curious rather than hostile. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Maya explained. We're not fast enough to catch prey in a sprint or strong enough to overpower it directly, but we're excellent at working in coordinated groups to exhaust stronger opponents and drive them into positions where our advantages become decisive. She gestured to Team 7, who were standing together with the unconscious unity that had developed over the course of the exercise. Every species here is individually superior to humans in some measurable way, but humans are better than any other known species at recognizing and utilizing the strengths of allies while compensating for their weaknesses. You're saying that human weakness is actually a strength? Brutal Gash asked, his massive Thurvak form showing genuine puzzlement. I'm saying that human adaptability is a strength that becomes more powerful as situations become more complex, Maya corrected. In a simple one-on-one fight, most of you could defeat most humans without much trouble. But as you add more variables, multiple opponents, complex terrain, limited resources, unclear objectives, human advantages become more significant. Instructor Calarith approached the group, her 8 tentacles writhing with what Marcus had learned to recognize as professional interest. Cadet Nakamura, your tactical approach was unlike anything in our standard curriculum. Where did you learn to coordinate multi-species operations with such precision? Maya's expression became carefully neutral. Various places. Instructor. I've had the opportunity to observe how different species approach military problems, and the psychological warfare components, the electronic intelligence gathering, the asymmetric tactical doctrines. Humans have been developing those techniques for millennia, Maya said. We just adapted them to work with galactic-scale military operations. Marcus noticed that Maya was being deliberately vague about her background, but Instructor Calareth seemed satisfied with the explanation. As the debriefing continued and other instructors arrived to analyze the exercise results, he found himself standing beside her, while their teammates celebrated their unexpected victory. You did more than just win a training exercise, he said quietly. You changed how everyone here thinks about humans. Maya nodded, watching Vex Tar demonstrate Zentorian energy techniques to Thyron, while Corvex and Drex discussed the integration of electronic and fusion-based warfare. That was the idea. Why? Marcus asked. I mean, why did you care enough to put this much effort into proving a point? Maya was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes focused on something Marcus couldn't see. Because humans are going to need allies in the years ahead, she said finally. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and Earth is still a newcomer, with more enemies than friends. If we're going to survive and thrive among the stars, we need to demonstrate that we're worth having as partners. And you think today accomplished that? Maya glanced around the training hall, where cadets from dozens of species were engaged in animated discussions about the tactical innovations they'd witnessed. Several groups were already trying to replicate Team 7's coordination techniques, while others debated the implications of human-led multi-species operations. Today was a good start, she said, but it's only the beginning. The real test will come when we face challenges that can't be solved with clever tactics and good teamwork. As they left the training hall together, Marcus realized that his life at the academy had fundamentally changed over the past 24 hours. He was no longer just a human trying to prove he belonged among superior alien warriors. He was part of something larger and more important, a new model for how different species could work together to achieve goals that none of them could accomplish alone. Behind them, in the training hall that had seen countless exercises over the Academy's long history, instructors were already beginning to revise their curriculum to incorporate the lessons learned from Team 7's victory. The age of individual combat supremacy was ending, replaced by something more complex and ultimately more powerful. The age of human-led integration warfare had begun, and Maya Nakamura had just fired the opening shot in a revolution that would reshape galactic military thinking for generations to come. But as Marcus would soon discover, Maya's true purpose at the Academy went far beyond proving human tactical superiority. The girl who had casually deflected attacks from 3 senior cadets and then led a mixed-species team to impossible victory was playing a much deeper game, one that would determine not just humanity's place among the stars, but the future of galactic civilization itself.